Hello everyone, we have the new hero here, Lysander. So Lysander is a celestial hero, also an agility based hero. The class is a ranger and the primary role is buff, so hopefully we'll see some buffs on our heroes here. Let's go ahead and start with the ultimate skill. This one is called Grandmaster's Opening. So at the start of battle, Lysander immediately casts his ultimate without spending any energy, and while casting, Lysander is immune to control effects. All heroes, both enemies and allies, are defined as chess pieces with different functions. Heroes in the front line, the center of the back line, and the sides of the back line are defined as pawns, kings, and rooks, respectively. These chess piece effects do not disappear when Lysander dies. Depending on the chess piece effect of Lysander himself, subsequently uses his ultimate will have different effects. When Lysander is deployed to the front line, his normal attacks are melee. From the back line, his normal attacks are ranged. And with the level 2 ability, subsequent uses of Lysander's ultimate only cost 800 energy. And then with the level 3, it reduces that to 600 energy. So it says the ultimate will have different effects depending on the chess pieces here. It doesn't really have any values in here. It doesn't really say the different effects of the ultimate as well, so this is kind of confusing. So I'm not really sure how this is going to actually work, but let's go ahead and look at the second skill. This one is called Pawn March. The frontline heroes are pawns. The attack and defense of pawns are reduced by 40%. If a pawn reaches a certain distance from the enemy's backline position, it will transform into a knight, and their attack and defense will be increased by 80% instead. When Lysander is a pawn, his ultimate stabs at an enemy in front of him, dealing damage equal to 550% of his attack rating and knocking them into the air. When Lysander is a knight, his ultimate teleports him in front of an enemy hero, prioritizing targeting kings. He then stabs multiple times, launching 4 strikes that deal damage equal to 280% of his attack rating, while the final strike deals damage equal to 620% of his attack rating. And with the level 2 ability, when Lysander is a pawn or knight, each strike of damage from his ultimate permanently reduces the target's defense rating by 8%. This effect can be stacked up to 6 times, and with the level 3 ability here, it looks like it will increase the target's defense rating by 10%, which again will be stacked up to 6 times. So it looks like these next 3 skills that we're going to look at are going to deal with how the ultimate here will be affected based on whether Lysander is a different piece here. So it looks like Lysander will make the pawns in the front line weaker, reducing their attack and defense by 40%. But also, if the pawn is at a certain distance from the enemy's backline position, they will turn into a knight, and then that will increase their attack and defense by 80%. So when Lysander is a pawn, he will do some damage here, also knocking enemies into the air. He will also teleport in front of an enemy hero, prioritizing kings, since kings are the most important piece in chess, since this is going to be a kind of like a chess-based battle here that Lysander is going to be dealing with, and doing even more damage to the king here as well. So overall, this is going to be a pretty interesting hero. I can already tell based on the fact that this is going to be based off chess. So let's go ahead and look at the second skill here, or the other skill called Royal Protection. Heroes in the center of the backline are kings. Kings inflict 65% less damage and health loss. When a king dies, they inflict AoE health loss equal to 60% of the king's max health to allies in a large area. When Lysander is a king, his ultimate grants the 2 allied heroes closest to the enemy's backline position the Inspired effect for 9 seconds, increasing their energy recovery rate and tenacity by 20 and 50 points, respectively. It also applies a debuff on the same value on the 2 enemy heroes closest to the allied backline position. And with the level 2 ability here, the Inspired effect also increases dodge by an amount equal to 20% of Lysander's initial dodge. With the level 3 ability, The inspired effect also increases physical pierce and magic pierce by an amount equal to 75% of Lysander's initial physical pierce. And then we have the first engraving skill here. When an enemy hero suffers health loss from the death of a king, their energy is cleared and they suffer an extra strike of damage equal to 20% of their lost health, not to exceed 600% of Lysander's attack rating. So it makes sense that the kings are in the backline center since they are really the main piece in chess. You really want to protect them, so having your heroes surround the king is going to help protect them, hopefully. So it looks like the kings are going to be pretty weak here, maybe, since they inflict 65% less damage and health loss. Also, if they die, they will have an AoE health loss to the allies in a large area, not to the enemies, but to the allies. So if you need to make sure your king is protected so that does not happen. And it looks like this is going to be where the buffs are. When Lysander is a king, he will his ultimate will grant 2 allied heroes closest to the enemy backline with inspired. That increases their energy recovery rate and tenacity. Also applies a debuff on the same value on the 2 enemy heroes closest to the allied backline position. So not only applying buffs to your allied heroes, but also applying debuffs to the enemy heroes. The inspired effect will also increase physical pierce and magic pierce, as well with the level 2 and level 3 abilities. And then we have the first engraving skill. When the king dies, if an enemy hero suffers health loss from that, their energy is cleared, and they also suffer quite a bit of damage as well from that. So if you're going to have your king die, you might want to have your king die when they are close to enemies here. And then we have the final skill in here. This one is called Iron Siege. Heroes on the sides of the backline are rooks. Rooks deal more damage the farther away the enemy is, for a max damage boost of 75%. Upon dealing damage to enemies beyond a certain distance away, the enemy is also knocked back. This knockback effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 2 seconds. However, enemies also deal more damage to rooks the closer they are, for a max damage boost of 50%. While Lysander is a rook, his ultimate deals 5 strikes of damage equal to 450% of his attack rating to the enemy farthest from himself. And then we have the level 2 ability. When Lysander is a rook, each strike of damage from his ultimate also inflicts health loss equal to 5% of the target's max health, not to exceed 500% of Lysander's attack rating. And it looks like the level 3 ability will change this to 6% and 600% respectively. And then we have the second engraving skill. Every time allied rooks use their ultimate, they permanently gain 20 points of haste and 20 points of attack speed. This effect can be stacked up to 5 times. So it looks like for the rooks, you might want to put heroes that have ranged attacks in here because they will do more damage the farther the enemy is. So having a ranged attack hero for those rooks might be a good idea. They can also do some knockback in here as well. But remember, the closer enemies are to the rook, if they do damage to those rooks, they will be able to do more damage in here. Also, it sounds like Lysander can do a lot of damage here as a rook, dealing 5 strikes of damage equal to 450% of his attack rating to the enemy farthest from himself. Also, this second engraving skill here sounds very powerful, having 20 points of haste in here, also 20 points of attack speed. Haste is a very important attribute to this game, so being able to have allied heroes have the 20 points of haste in here when they use their ultimate, that is pretty useful, and that is permanent gain. And also it stacks up to 5 times, so if you have that 5 times stack, that will increase it to 100 points. So that is absolutely insane. So those are all the skills here. Let's go ahead and look at the signature item. This one is called Strategic Empowerment. So unlocking the signature item, when an allied pawn transforms into a knight, they recover 50% of their max health. At plus 10 signature item, when an allied pawn transforms into a knight, they recover 200 energy. With a plus 20 signature item, when an allied pawn transforms into a knight, they recover 500 energy. With the plus 30 signature item, when an allied pawn transforms into a knight, they gain the inspired effect. And then with the plus 40 signature item, when an allied pawn transforms into a knight, all other allied heroes gain the inspired effect. If a hero is already inspired, then the duration of the buff is refreshed and its effects are all boosted by 80%. So this sounds very powerful, especially with the pawns here transforming into a knight. That's what this is mostly based off of, gaining 50% max health, recovering 500 energy with the plus 20 signature item, getting the inspired effect, and also allowing all other allied heroes getting the inspired effect when a pawn transforms into a knight. Also refreshing the duration of the buff if the allied heroes already have it, and boosting it by 80%. So this sounds extremely powerful. Sounds like a signature item you will definitely want at plus 40 signature item if you build Lysander. So let's go ahead and also look at the exclusive furniture. This one is called Royal Switch with the 3/3 furniture. When an allied king takes fatal damage, if there is an allied rook on the battlefield, the fatal damage will be blocked and the king will become invincible for 3 seconds. The king and the rook will also swap positions, prioritizing rooks that are closest to the backline position. This effect can only be triggered once per battle. And with the 9 of 9 furniture, for 8 seconds after this effect is triggered, the 2 heroes that swapped positions will recover 10% of their max health and 100 energy every second. So this is taking advantage of the relationship that the king and rook can have. The rook can block fatal damage from the king here, making the king invincible for 3 seconds, so that is pretty good. And I also I've used to play chess quite a while ago, and I really like that the rook and the king can also swap positions. If you don't know, I believe that's called castling in actual chess when you do that with a king and a rook. So I really like that they have that in here, that the king and the rook can swap positions, since that is an actual ability you can do in chess. I also like that the 2 heroes that swap position will also recover 10% of max health and also 100 energy every second for 8 seconds. So that is quite a bit of health recovered and also quite a bit of energy gained as well. So it sounds like this ability will be pretty useful to have kind of a cheat death for Lysander, and also have some health and energy gained in here as well. Sounds like a furniture that you should probably build to 9 of 9. And we just looked at this. We looked at the engraving with the bottom 2 skills. So overall, my thoughts on Lysander: sounds like a pretty unique character here, especially with the whole playing a game of chess with the allied and enemy heroes. That is something we've really never seen before in this game. So very unique in here. Also sounds like a cool thing in here to have that to have those chess pieces in there. And also the hero as well looks pretty cool. I really like the cane that he's holding as well, that the gold and green parts to it, and also the gold and green color that he has as a whole also looks pretty cool. So if you like this video, then make sure to click the like button. Also subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video from me. And also comment, what do you think about Lysander? And thanks for watching.